From drunken presidents to beer bottles stuck in asses, history is full of hijinks. Let's start with the normal and work our way to the unbelievable. Our first story begins with the second election of President Abraham Lincoln on March 4th, 1865. However, it wasn't from the president that the drama arose, but rather from his soon-to-be VP, Andrew Johnson. Johnson had a rather well-known fondness for getting absolutely blackout drunk. In simple terms, the man knew how to party. In the weeks preceding his swearing in as vice president, Johnson had been on an absolute bender, described as one of the most protracted sprees in his entire life. He also might have been sick at the time, to the extent that his doctor told him that if he went to the party in Washington, there was a chance he could die. Yet, of course, he decided to go anyway. The first bad omens came before Johnson even made it to Washington, as he delivered a speech in Cincinnati that was described as utterly unintelligible, perhaps a sign of things to come. So when Johnson finally arrived in Washington, he took this as a cue to keep drinking and attended a party where he, yet again, drank heavily. Perhaps due to his thunderous hangover the next morning, when Johnson woke up, his first instinct was to sober up, get dressed, and ready for his speech. Just kidding, he immediately started drinking again. Thus, Johnson was pretty drunk when he took the stage to deliver his speech. According to witnesses, he was so utterly trashed that his face was a bright red, he was stuttering, slurring his words. All in all, basically nobody could understand him. Now that I think of it, this might be something that has to be shown rather than told. Fellow citizens, this speech is my existence. May I say my life and mislections to the collection? Conceit condition sported trousers. And I am Andrew Johnson, Tennessee. Yeah. Staying on the topic of booze, our next little story is going to take us to 1814 London, specifically an establishment called the Horseshoe Brewery. Tragedy would strike when one of the 22 feet tall vats of beer burst, causing a flood of booze. The alcohol immediately smashed through the adjacent vats, adding their booze to its own, and broke down the back wall of the brewery. Unfortunately, Andrew Johnson was only 6 years old at the time, so he couldn't drink the beer before it got loose. And with no vice president to chug the booze, the flood rampaged through the St. Giles slums, killing 8 people, all of whom were attending a wake at the time. Family, friends, countrymen, we gather here today to mourn, but also to celebrate the life of... Dore was an everyday Serbian farmer residing in modern-day Kosovo, which at the time was part of Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia was known for having consistent ethnic conflicts, one of which was between the Serbians and the Albanians, which were 2 of the more dominant population groups in Kosovo. Dore would come to be a central figure in this conflict. When he arrived at a local hospital complaining of pain in his rear. Doctor, I seem to have a bit of an issue. My ass hurts quite a bit.
Oh, well that's no good. Let's have a look then. So, did you shove this bottle up your ass or did someone else?
Oh dear doctor, you have no idea how good of a question that is. An investigation was quickly launched around the question of how this beer bottle ended up wedged in Dore's ass. One faction held that Dore would have been physically incapable of inserting the bottle into his own anus, and thus concluded that it must have been done by Albanian separatists who were known to harass Serbian farmers. The other group, which was largely Albanian, concluded that Dore had indeed done this to himself in an attempt at masturbation, something which Dore did initially claim. Now, due to this ethnic context, Dore's situation became a national issue and was used as the talking point by Serbians to stir up discontent. That ethnic conflict, exacerbated by one man's habit for shoving things up his ass, or maybe not, became one of the most vicious wars in modern history, complete with human rights abuses and even genocide. Such it was that an entire nation came to know of the time Dore Martinovic got horny, or got attacked, depending on who you believe. Honestly, I'm not sure if there's a moral in this one, but don't go shoving beer bottles where they don't belong, guys.